Hello, I'm Evan Brand, certified functional medicine practitioner, talking with you today about histamine issues. This is not fun, but a lot of people suffer and a lot of people end up on conventional antihistamines, which if you've been subscribed to my channel for any amount of time, you know histamine drugs are not root cause. Your histamine issues are not a deficiency of drugs. That's not why you're having these problems. It's just because you need more drugs, more antihistamines. No, that's not the answer. There's always root causes. So I'm going to talk to you about some of the variables, some of the factors I'm seeing that play into these histamine issues in my clinic, and then how we can help resolve some of the stuff. So I wrote here histamine issues and gut infections. The truth is that it can be SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, but it could also be other infections, which I wrote down here. So like candida overgrowth can be a contributor to histamine problems. Parasites can be an issue. SIBO. This is usually all just one big party. You're usually not going to see just a SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or what may be called also SIFO, which is a bit different but related, small intestinal fungal overgrowth. You can have candida overgrowing in the small intestine, just like you can have bacteria overgrowing. And then parasites, they're just along for the ride. They're going to also disrupt that gut barrier, increase that intestinal permeability, create that leaky gut situation, which you've probably heard about. Most of the time, people with a leaky gut situation are also going to have histamine problems. So how does this manifest? Well, it depends on the person. It could be the runny nose, sinus drip, kind of nasal drip type issue. It could be head pressure. It could be headaches. It could be flushing, especially if you're eating certain high histamine foods. You may flush out, meaning you get red, you get hot, you get sweaty. It could be you get like clammy hands, sweaty hands. Could be heart palpitations. It could be anxiety. It could be dizziness, depression. Histamine is a neurotransmitter as well. So you can have some neurological issues and neurological changes just based on histamine. So fermented foods and drinks like kombucha could be a bad thing. I had a woman who she had major rashing on her skin. She would flush out every time she would eat. She had a runny nose all the time, but yet it was an allergy season outside, and found out she was drinking about 5 kombuchas per day. Now, you're probably not doing that, but that was an extreme case. This lady had major candida overgrowth as well. I believe the candida was sort of compelling her, if you will, to drink more kombucha. It was almost as if the yeast wanted to call the other yeast friends to join the party. So yes, fermented foods and kombucha can be good, but just like probiotics, there's a right place and a right time, and there's a wrong place and a wrong time. So that's the annoying thing about the internet, is someone will say, oh, probiotics are great, and everyone should just go out and buy probiotics. Fermented foods are great. Everyone should just go eat sauerkraut every day and go drink kombucha. But that's not the reality. What I see clinically is far different than the BuzzFeed article that says, here's the top 5 fermented things you need to be eating. That's not the point. You might not be a good candidate for that. So secondly, another issue here, bone broth. Everyone's touting bone broth. You've got Dr. Axe making millions of dollars selling bone broth powder. He does have an organic line, luckily, but previously it was just non-organic bone broth. And think about bones and cartilage and joints. That's where you're going to bioaccumulate toxins. Mike Adams, Natural News, did some really great, compelling studies on finding heavy metals and all sorts of contaminants in bone broth powder. So I don't personally recommend those. I recommend getting local bones or using a good company. I'll link one below that I use that is tested and perfectly safe to drink. However, think of the nature of bone broth. You're simmering things for a long time, and the longer you cook something, the more time you have for histamine to build up. So slow cooking, like crock pot cooking, if you like that, that may be a problem. That may be something you need to stop doing until you get your gut issues and your histamine issues regulated. So bone broth, that may be out. Fermented foods and drinks, that may be out. Certain probiotics, that may be out. You've got certain strains of probiotics that actually increase histamine, and you've got certain probiotics that can decrease histamine. So clinically, we typically focus on using, even just if we don't even know someone has a histamine problem, we're going to start out using non-histamine producing or non-histamine stimulating strains of probiotics. Therefore, we don't flare up somebody that's on the edge of having some type of histamine reaction. We already talked about the infections. And then lastly, I'll just make a note here about motility issues. So if you're constipated, think about it. You've got all these bacteria in your gut because you have SIBO or SIFO or parasites or all of it. And these bacteria are producing histamine. But if you're not pooping, aka the garbage man's not showing up to take out the trash, you've got a problem, because now these bacteria they're not leaving. So they're continuing to just brew and brew and brew and create more histamine. The candida is creating acetaldehyde, which is similar to an alcohol molecule. So now you've got the brain fog, you've got the anxiety, you've got potentially the joint pain, the sinus issues, the headaches. You see how this thing spirals out of control. So you really have to systematically get the proper testing done, figure out what you're up against first, and then work with your functional medicine practitioner to address these things in the correct order. So if you come in the door and somebody says, hey, I want you to start drinking bone broth to heal your leaky gut, and then I want you to start doing these probiotics and drink some kombucha because fermented foods are all the rage and they're good for your gut and they're going to feed all the good gut bacteria, and you feel like crap doing that, well, no. Well, then you got to stop doing that. You got to get this crap out, because that is not the right place and is not the right time. Keep that in mind. Just because something's good doesn't mean it's good right now. There's a certain order of operations you want to follow, and that's going to give you the best clinical outcome, and that's going to prevent you from going 5 steps backward to then try to come 3 steps forward. I find that all the time. That's the beauty and the curse of the internet, is good things come to the surface, like bone broth can be very therapeutic. Fermented foods, probiotics can be very therapeutic, very beneficial, but there needs to be like a little disclaimer on all those articles, which is like, hey, this might not be the right time or the right place, but that's not what the writers get paid to do. They're not clinicians. They're not seeing the stuff I'm seeing, which is that people have gone way backwards doing this stuff. So I hope that helps. If you'd like to reach out, I work with these issues every single day around the planet with people. So if you'd like to schedule a 15-minute free call, we could chat about your symptoms and goals. You could just click right here on screen, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.